The ice beneath Dr. Kevin Palmer's boots cracked as he walked across the frozen surface of Kepler 442c. His breath formed white clouds in the bitter cold air, while his scanning equipment beeped steadily in his hands. The research station behind him looked tiny against the vast white landscape that stretched to the horizon. 47 scientists had come to this frozen world 6 months ago to study ancient alien ruins buried deep under the ice. None of them expected to find what they discovered 3 days ago. Palmer knelt down and placed his scanner against the ice. The readings made his heart race just like they had every time he checked them. Below the surface lay something that would change everything humans knew about the galaxy. His team had found an underground complex filled with technology far beyond anything Earth's best scientists could imagine. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge watching the frozen planet slowly turn below his ship. His exploration vessel had brought supplies to the research station and would take the scientists home when their work finished. Morrison was a veteran space captain who had seen many worlds in his 20 years of service. But this ice ball seemed different. Something about it made him feel uneasy. Chief Engineer Lisa Wang walked onto the bridge carrying a steaming cup of coffee. She had worked with Morrison for 5 years and knew him well enough to read his moods. "Still worried about the weather down there, Captain?" she asked while looking at the sensor displays. Morrison shook his head slowly. "Not the weather, Lisa. Palmer's team found something big down there and they're being very quiet about what it is. Every time I ask for details, they say they need more time to study it." Tactical Officer Danny Rodriguez looked up from his console. "Maybe they just want to be sure before they report anything, Captain. Scientists like to check their facts twice before making announcements." Medical Officer Amy Turner entered the bridge just in time to hear Rodriguez speak. "Dr. Palmer called me an hour ago requesting additional power cells for their excavation equipment. He seemed excited about something but wouldn't say what. All he told me was that they needed to work faster." Morrison frowned at this news. Palmer had been acting strange for the past week ever since his team broke through into the underground chambers. The doctor sent daily reports saying everything was normal, but his voice sounded tense during their communications. Something important was happening down there, and Morrison didn't like being kept in the dark. On the planet's surface, Palmer worked alongside his assistant, Dr. Jennifer Cole, inside the alien complex they had discovered. The chambers stretched for miles underground with walls made of some unknown material that glowed with a soft blue light. Strange symbols covered every surface, while machines that still functioned after thousands of years filled the rooms. The technology they found here could revolutionize human civilization. Cole held up a small device she had removed from one of the alien machines. "Kevin, you need to see this. I think this little box contains blueprints for faster-than-light communication systems. If we can understand how it works, humans could talk to each other instantly across the entire galaxy." Palmer examined the device carefully. His team had already found plans for energy shields that could protect entire cities, and most incredible of all, machines that could transfer human consciousness from one body to another. The implications were staggering. Death itself might become optional if humans could learn to use this technology. "We need to transmit copies of everything to Earth immediately," Palmer said while connecting the alien device to his portable computer. "This discovery is too important to risk losing." Far from the ice world, Ambassador Helen Cruz sat in her office on the diplomatic station orbiting Proxima Centauri. For 30 years, she had worked to maintain peaceful relations between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire. The crystalline aliens controlled over 200 worlds and considered themselves the galaxy's natural rulers. They tolerated humans as useful but clearly inferior beings. Cruz had just received a priority message from the Zephyrian High Council, demanding information about human activities in the Outer Rim territories. The aliens wanted detailed reports about every research mission and exploration vessel. This was unusual since they normally ignored human scientific projects as primitive and unimportant. The Zephyrians were tall beings made of living crystal that could change colors based on their emotions. Their technology was advanced, but they rarely shared it with other species. They viewed themselves as guardians of galactic civilization and believed younger races like humanity needed their guidance to avoid making dangerous mistakes. High Counselor, Vexthera stood in the council chamber on the Zephyrian homeworld studying reports about human activities. His crystalline body glowed red with anger as he read about the discovery on Kepler 442c. The ancient complex belonged to the predecessors, a race that had vanished millions of years ago. Their technology was too dangerous for primitive species, like humans, to possess. The humans have found a predecessor archive, Vexthera announced to the other council members. They are extracting technology that could destabilize the entire galaxy if misused. We must act immediately to secure these artifacts before the humans can study them further. Councillor Zarvan's body shifted to a worried blue color. What do you propose? The humans have been peaceful partners for 3 decades. They may resist if we simply demand they surrender their discovery. Vexthera's crystals turned a darker shade of red. Then we will remind them of their place in the galactic order. One way or another, those artifacts will be secured in proper hands. The survival of galactic civilization depends on it. Back on Kepler 442c, Palmer finished uploading the last of the alien data files to his secure transmission array. He had sent copies to 3 hidden locations across human space, ensuring the knowledge would survive even if something happened to his team. As he powered down the equipment, he felt proud of what they had accomplished, but also worried about how others might react to their discovery. The ice world continued its slow rotation around its distant star, while 2 species prepared for a confrontation that would change the galaxy forever. Neither humans nor Zephyrians fully understood what was about to begin, but the consequences would echo across the stars for generations to come. The Zephyrian warships appeared without warning above Kepler 442c like deadly flowers blooming in the darkness of space. Captain Morrison watched in horror from the bridge of Horizon's Edge as 3 massive crystalline vessels took position around the research station. Their hulls glowed with the same blue light as their builders, while weapon ports opened like hungry mouths along their sides. Morrison grabbed his communications console and sent an urgent message to the planet's surface. Dr. Palmer, this is Horizon's Edge. You have incoming Zephyrian ships and they don't look friendly. Get your people to the emergency shelters immediately. Palmer's voice crackled through the static-filled transmission. Jake, we're not finished here. We need more time to secure the remaining data files. The aliens can't be allowed to destroy what we've found. Before Morrison could respond, the lead Zephyrian vessel fired its main weapon at the research station. The beam of pure energy cut through the atmosphere and struck the facility with devastating force. The explosion lit up the ice plains for hundreds of miles while superheated steam rose into the frozen air. In seconds, the station and everyone inside it simply vanished. Chief Engineer Wang stared at her instruments in shock. Captain, I'm reading. No life signs from the surface. The entire research complex has been vaporized along with Dr. Palmer and his team. Morrison felt rage building in his chest as he watched the Zephyrian ships prepare to leave. 47 scientists had died without warning or explanation. The aliens had committed mass murder and seemed to feel no remorse about their actions. His finger moved toward the weapon controls, but Wang grabbed his arm. Don't do it, Captain, she said quietly. Our ship isn't designed for combat. Those warships would destroy us in seconds if we attack them. We need to get back to Earth and report what happened here. The journey home felt like the longest of Morrison's career. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the flash of energy that had killed Palmer's team. The Zephyrians had shown their true nature, and Morrison knew this was only the beginning of something terrible. Admiral Scott Thompson received Morrison's report while standing in the command center deep below the Rocky Mountains. The underground facility served as headquarters for Earth's defense forces and had been built to withstand anything short of a direct nuclear strike. Thompson was a career military officer who had spent his entire life preparing for threats that never came. Now it seemed those preparations would finally be tested. The wall displays showed red warning lights across human space as Zephyrian fleets moved toward the border systems. Intelligence reports indicated massive military buildup in enemy territory, while diplomatic channels remained ominously silent. Thompson had seen enough wars to recognize the signs of impending conflict. President Maria Gonzalez called an emergency session of the Colonial Council, bringing together representatives from all 12 human worlds. The debate chamber filled with angry voices as news of the attack spread throughout the assembled delegates. Some called for immediate military response, while others urged caution and diplomacy. Council member Robert Chen from Alpha Centauri stood to address the assembly. "We cannot allow this aggression to go unanswered. The Zephyrians have shown they consider human life worthless. If we don't respond with strength, they will see it as weakness and attack again." Council member Sandra Lopez from Wolf 359 disagreed strongly. Military action against the Zephyrian Empire would be suicide. They have over 200 worlds and weapons technology far superior to ours. We should seek diplomatic solutions before considering warfare. General Patricia Hayes stepped forward to brief the council on military readiness. Her uniform bore the scars of previous conflicts, and her stern expression reflected decades of combat experience. The general had always believed that peace was best maintained through strength and preparation for war. The Zephyrians currently have overwhelming advantages in ships, weapons, and personnel, Hayes reported to the silent chamber. However, our intelligence suggests they have never faced determined resistance from any species. Their military doctrine assumes quick victories against inferior opponents who surrender when faced with superior force. Ambassador Cruz joined the council meeting by secure transmission from her diplomatic station. Her face showed the strain of trying to maintain contact with Zephyrian officials who refused to respond to her communications. 30 years of careful relationship building had collapsed in a matter of hours. "I've been unable to reach any Zephyrian authorities since the attack," Cruz reported. "All diplomatic channels have been closed, and my requests for clarification have been ignored. It appears they have decided to resolve this matter through force rather than negotiation." President Gonzalez listened carefully to all viewpoints before making her decision. The weight of leadership felt heavier than ever, as she realized her next words might determine humanity's future. She stood slowly and looked around the chamber at the faces of those who had trusted her with their lives. "The attack on Kepler 442c was an act of war against all humanity," Gonzalez declared. "We will not bow to alien demands or accept the murder of our people as the price of peace." General Hayes, you have authorization to begin full military mobilization across all human worlds. Meanwhile, Captain Morrison found himself reassigned to special duties under Admiral Thompson's direct command. His experience at Kepler 442c made him valuable for intelligence gathering and planning operations against Zephyrian forces. The peaceful exploration missions of his past had ended forever. The hidden data files that Palmer had transmitted before his death began reaching their destinations across human space. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock to understand the alien technology, while military planners studied ways to weaponize the discoveries. The consciousness transfer systems looked particularly promising for creating soldiers who could continue fighting even after their bodies were destroyed. On the agricultural world of New Haven, Colonel Ryan Mitchell received orders to prepare his planetary militia for possible invasion. The farming communities had never expected to become battlegrounds, but the Zephyrians apparently intended to seize human worlds as well as artifacts. Mitchell began organizing civilian evacuations, while his troops prepared defensive positions. The Zephyrian High Council met in their Crystal Palace to discuss the human problem. Vexathara had expected quick submission after the demonstration of force at the research station. Instead, intelligence reports showed humans mobilizing for war across their entire territory. This outcome had not been anticipated in their strategic planning. "The humans are reacting more aggressively than predicted," Counselor Zarvin observed. "Perhaps we should consider offering them terms that would allow them to maintain some autonomy while surrendering the dangerous artifacts." Vexathara's crystals flared bright red with anger. "Absolutely not. These primitive creatures must learn their place in the galactic order. We will relocate them to a single world where they can be properly supervised. Their warlike nature makes them too dangerous to leave scattered across multiple systems." The Zephyrian fleet began its advance toward human space, carrying orders for complete conquest and relocation of the entire human species. The aliens believed their superior technology and numbers would ensure quick victory. They had never encountered a species willing to fight to the death rather than surrender, and could not imagine the fury they were about to unleash. The first Zephyrian invasion fleet struck New Haven at dawn, while most of the planet's population slept peacefully in their beds. Colonel Mitchell's early warning systems detected the incoming ships just minutes before they entered the atmosphere. Air raid sirens wailed across the farming communities as civilians rushed toward the underground shelters that had been hastily prepared over the past week. Mitchell stood in his command bunker watching the tactical displays as 18 enemy vessels descended toward the planet's main cities. His militia forces consisted of farmers and shopkeepers who had volunteered to defend their homes. They faced professional warriors equipped with advanced weapons and armor, but Mitchell knew his people had advantages the aliens couldn't understand. The Zephyrian ground forces landed expecting quick surrender from the primitive human defenders. Instead, they encountered coordinated resistance from fighters who knew every hill, valley, and forest on their homeworld. Mitchell's troops used hunting rifles and improvised explosives to harass the invaders while avoiding direct confrontation with their superior firepower. Dr. Angela Foster worked frantically in her laboratory on Mars, trying to adapt the alien technology Palmer had discovered. The consciousness transfer systems were incredibly complex, but her team was making progress in understanding their basic principles. If they could create working versions, humans might gain the ability to continue fighting even after their physical bodies were destroyed. The quantum communication arrays were easier to reverse engineer, and Foster's team had already built several prototype units. These devices allowed instant communication across vast distances, making it possible for human forces to coordinate their actions perfectly. The advantages of real-time intelligence sharing would prove crucial in the coming battles. Admiral Thompson coordinated the human response from his underground command center, while reports flooded in from across human space. Every world was mobilizing for war as factories converted from civilian production to military manufacturing. Shipyards that had built cargo vessels now worked around the clock producing warships, while mining operations shifted to extracting materials needed for weapons and armor. Captain Morrison received his new assignment as commander of the hastily assembled Rapid Response Fleet. His force consisted of converted civilian ships crewed by volunteers who had lost friends or family in the Zephyrian attacks. The crews lacked formal military training, but their motivation burned hotter than any flame. Chief Engineer Wang had requested transfer to Morrison's fleet and now served as his second-in-command aboard the modified passenger liner Terra Nova. The ship's luxury accommodations had been stripped out to make room for weapon systems and armor plating. What the vessel lacked in elegant design, it made up for in deadly purpose. On New Haven, Mitchell's forces continued their guerrilla campaign against the occupation troops. The aliens controlled the major cities but found themselves under constant attack whenever they ventured into the countryside. Their crystalline bodies made them easy targets for human snipers, while their rigid command structure couldn't adapt quickly to changing battlefield conditions. The Zephyrians had expected grateful surrender from beings they considered inferior. Instead, they faced enemies who seemed to appear from nowhere, strike without warning, and vanish back into familiar terrain. Every patrol that left the secured zones came under attack from humans who showed no fear of death. President Gonzalez addressed the entire human population through the new quantum communication network. Her words reached every world simultaneously, carrying a message of defiance that rang across the stars. The president's speech was simple but powerful, and it awakened something primal in the human spirit. The aliens came to our world believing we would submit without resistance, Gonzalez declared. They thought we were weak creatures who would bow before their superior technology. They were wrong. Humanity has faced extinction before and survived. We will not go quietly into the darkness. They have planned for us. The consciousness transfer technology achieved its first breakthrough when Dr. Foster successfully uploaded the memories and personality of a critically wounded volunteer into a mechanical body. The soldier had been dying from injuries received during a Zephyrian raid, but now found himself stronger and faster than any human had ever been. The mechanical body could survive in vacuum, withstand extreme temperatures, and operate without rest for months at a time. More importantly, the consciousness inside retained all memories, emotions, and determination of the original person. Death had been transformed from an ending into simply another beginning. Morrison's fleet engaged the Zephyrian forces at Wolf 359 in humanity's first major space battle. The human ships were individually weaker than their crystalline opponents, but they fought with tactics the aliens had never encountered. Converted freighters rammed enemy vessels while mining ships used their industrial cutting beams as weapons. Tactical. Officer Rodriguez coordinated the fleet's movements from his position on Terra Nova's bridge. The young officer had learned everything he knew about space combat from training simulations, but he adapted quickly to the reality of battle. His innovative use of civilian equipment as weapon systems caught the Zephyrian commanders completely off guard. The Battle of Wolf 359 lasted for 6 hours and ended with 12 human ships destroyed against 7 enemy vessels eliminated. By traditional measures, the humans had lost, but Morrison knew they had achieved something more important than victory. They had proven that Zephyrian ships could be destroyed and Zephyrian crews could die. Medical Officer Turner worked frantically to save wounded crew members while the battle raged around her. The ship's medical bay had been expanded to handle combat casualties, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of warfare. Despite the horror she witnessed, Turner remained focused on her duty to preserve human life. News of the human victory spread rapidly through the quantum communication network, reaching every world within hours. The triumph at Wolf 359 proved that humanity could fight back successfully against their alien oppressors. More importantly, it demonstrated that the Zephyrians were not invincible despite their technological advantages. The psychological impact on Zephyrian forces was immediate and profound. For the first time in their history, they faced enemies who willingly sacrificed themselves to achieve tactical objectives. The aliens' military doctrine was built around preservation of their crystalline forms and hierarchical command structures that began crumbling under pressure. High Counselor Vexothera received reports of the defeat with growing alarm. The humans were proving far more dangerous than anticipated, and their resistance was stiffening rather than weakening under pressure. The quick conquest he had promised was turning into a prolonged war that might spread to other species. On New Haven, Mitchell's militia achieved a significant victory by capturing an intact Zephyrian dropship along with its crew. The aliens had never been taken prisoner before, and they provided valuable intelligence about enemy capabilities and intentions. More importantly, the captured ship could be reverse-engineered to provide humans with advanced technology. Dr. Foster's team made another breakthrough when they successfully created energy shield generators based on the alien blueprints. The shields could protect individual soldiers or entire starships from enemy fire, while allowing friendly weapons to pass through unimpeded. This technology would prove crucial in future battles. The war that had begun with a massacre on an ice world was transforming into something the galaxy had never seen before. Humanity was awakening to its potential as a warrior species, and the universe would never be the same. The sleeping giant stirred, and its fury would soon shake the stars themselves. 6 months after the first Zephyrian attack, humanity had transformed from a peaceful species into a war machine that terrified their enemies. Every human world now churned out weapons, ships, and soldiers with an efficiency that amazed even their own leaders. The consciousness transfer technology had created an army of immortal warriors, while the energy shields protected fleets that advanced relentlessly into enemy territory. Admiral Thompson stood on the bridge of his flagship, defiant, watching the largest human fleet ever assembled prepare for the assault on Zarian Prime. 300 ships filled the void around him, ranging from massive battleships built in Earth's orbital yards to converted civilian vessels crewed by vengeful volunteers. The Zephyrian stronghold system had never faced an attack of this magnitude. Captain Morrison commanded the advanced squadron aboard his new vessel Retribution, which had been built specifically for combat operations. The exploration ship that had witnessed the massacre at Kepler 442c was gone, replaced by a weapon designed for one purpose. Morrison's crew consisted entirely of volunteers who had lost everything to Zephyrian aggression. Dr. Foster's latest creation revolutionized warfare when her team perfected consciousness, guided missiles that could not be stopped by jamming or deception. Each weapon contained the uploaded mind of a human volunteer who could make split-second decisions during flight. The missiles pursued their targets with deadly intelligence, while their consciousness pilots felt only satisfaction at striking back against their enemies. Sergeant Mike Carter exemplified the new breed of human warrior that emerged from Foster's laboratories. His original body had been destroyed during the defense of Alpha Centauri, but his mind now inhabited a mechanical form that could survive in hard vacuum and fight without rest. Carter led a unit of similar soldiers who had volunteered for consciousness transfer rather than accept permanent death. The mechanical bodies were stronger, faster, and more durable than flesh, but they retained every memory, emotion, and personality of their original owners. Death had become merely an inconvenience rather than an ending for humans who chose to continue fighting in artificial forms. The psychological impact on Zephyrian forces was devastating as they faced enemies who literally could not be killed. Chief Engineer Wang had risen to command her own vessel in Morrison's squadron after proving her tactical brilliance in previous engagements. Her ship, Vengeance, was a converted mining platform equipped with industrial cutting beams that could slice through crystalline hulls like paper. Wang's crew consisted of former miners who understood their equipment better than any military manual could teach. The Battle of Zarian Prime began when human forces dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system and immediately came under attack from waiting defense fleets. The Zephyrians had concentrated over 200 ships to protect their stronghold, but they still underestimated the fury of their opponents. Human vessels charged forward through withering fire, accepting massive casualties to close with their enemies. Tactical Officer Rodriguez coordinated the attack from his position aboard Retribution, while consciousness-guided missiles streaked toward enemy targets. The young officer had developed new formations that maximized the effectiveness of converted civilian ships against professional military vessels. His innovations were spreading throughout the human fleet as other commanders adapted his successful tactics. The consciousness bombs that Dr. Foster had perfected proved devastatingly effective against Zephyrian ships. These weapons overloaded the neural networks of crystalline beings, causing their bodies to shatter instantly while leaving their vessels intact. Entire enemy crews died in seconds as the bombs detonated, creating psychological warfare effects that terrified surviving aliens. Medical Officer Turner now served aboard a hospital ship that followed behind the main battle fleet, collecting wounded and transferring the consciousnesses of dying soldiers into mechanical bodies. Her work had evolved from traditional medicine into something that bordered on resurrection, as she preserved human souls in artificial forms that could continue fighting indefinitely. The first day of battle saw 50 human ships destroyed against 30 Zephyrian vessels eliminated. Traditional military analysis suggested the exchange favored the aliens, but human reinforcements continued arriving from across their territory, while enemy forces had nowhere to retreat. The mathematics of attrition warfare clearly favored humanity, despite their individual disadvantages. Ambassador Cruz attempted to negotiate a ceasefire through diplomatic channels, but President Gonzalez rejected all overtures from the Zephyrian High Council. The human leader had seen too much death and destruction to consider anything less than complete surrender. Her people demanded justice for the massacre that had started this war, and they would accept nothing less than total victory. Colonel Mitchell's guerrilla forces on New Haven had evolved into a professional army that controlled most of their homeworld. The Zephyrian occupation troops found themselves confined to heavily fortified bases, while human fighters struck at will throughout the countryside. The aliens' superior technology meant nothing when they couldn't leave their defensive positions without facing immediate attack. The mechanical soldiers led by Sergeant Carter proved especially effective during boarding actions against enemy vessels. Their artificial bodies could survive in vacuum, while their uploaded consciousnesses felt no fear of death or injury. Zephyrian crews abandoned ships rather than face these immortal warriors in close-quarters combat. Dr. Foster's team achieved another breakthrough when they created portable consciousness transfer units that could be used on battlefields to immediately preserve dying soldiers. The devices allowed human forces to maintain their numbers despite casualties while building an ever-growing army of mechanical warriors. Death became temporary for humans while remaining permanent for their enemies. The second day of battle brought news that other alien species were taking notice of humanity's military capabilities. The aquatic Delphinians sent diplomatic messages, offering alliance against the Zephyrians, while the machine intelligences of the Nexus Collective began fortifying their borders. The galaxy was realizing that a new apex predator had emerged from the Outer Rim territories. High Counselor Vexithara watched his forces crumble under human assault, while his crystalline body flickered between colors of rage and fear. The quick conquest he had promised was turning into a nightmare that threatened the very existence of his species. Human tactics defied every principle of civilized warfare, while their willingness to sacrifice everything for victory terrified his military commanders. Captain Morrison led the final assault on the Zephyrian command center, while enemy ships exploded around him. His crew fought with the fury of those who had lost everything but found new purpose in revenge. The aliens had awakened something in humanity that even humans themselves hadn't known existed. The consciousness-guided missiles found their targets, with deadly precision, as human pilots guided them through defensive fire with suicidal determination. Each explosion represented the sacrifice of a volunteer who chose to die dealing damage to their enemies. The Zephyrians had never faced weapons controlled by minds willing to embrace destruction for victory. Admiral Thompson received reports that human forces were advancing on 3 fronts, while Zephyrian resistance collapsed throughout the system. The enemy fleets that had seemed so powerful 6 months ago now fled before ships crewed by farmers, miners, and shopkeepers who had learned to fight with desperate efficiency. The war that had begun with an act of alien aggression was approaching its climax as humanity prepared to claim final victory. The fury unleashed by the massacre at Kepler 442c had transformed a peaceful species into conquerors who would soon reshape the galaxy according to their own vision of justice. The Zephyrians had taken one step too far and awakened forces they could never hope to control. The siege of the Zephyrian homeworld lasted 2 months as human forces systematically dismantled every defense the aliens could mount. Admiral Morrison led the final assault on their capital city, while mechanical soldiers stormed through streets, lined with crystalline towers that had stood for thousands of years. The consciousness transfer technology had created an unstoppable army of immortal warriors who felt only satisfaction at finally achieving justice. The Zephyrians made one last, desperate attempt to deny victory to their human enemies. Deep beneath, their homeworld massive fusion reactors powered the planetary defense grid, but they could also be overloaded to create an explosion that would destroy both the planet and the attacking fleet. High Counselor Vexithara personally activated the Doomsday Protocol, believing that mutual destruction was preferable to surrender. Dr. Foster's consciousness transfer technology saved humanity from this final gambit. Human engineers whose minds had been uploaded into radiation-shielded mechanical bodies descended into the planet's molten core, while conditions that would instantly kill any biological form. They worked with desperate efficiency to disarm the fusion reactors, while the countdown to destruction continued inexorably. The mechanical engineers succeeded with only minutes to spare, cutting the power feeds to the overloading reactors and preventing planetary annihilation. Their artificial bodies were destroyed by the extreme conditions, but their uploaded consciousnesses had already been transmitted to safety aboard the fleet above. Death remained temporary for humans while victory became permanent. Vexithara and the surviving members of the High Council found themselves dragged from their crystal palace to face judgment aboard Admiral Thompson's flagship, Terra Invictus. The proud beings who had dismissed humans as inferior creatures now knelt in chains before officers they had planned to relocate to reservation worlds. The consciousness transfer network ensured that every human who had died in the war witnessed this moment of ultimate vindication. President Gonzalez addressed the galaxy from the bridge of Terra Invictus, while Zephyrian leaders waited to learn their fate. Her words were broadcast through quantum communication arrays to every inhabited world, carrying a message that would reshape interstellar politics forever. The age of human subservience had ended, and a new era of galactic dominance was beginning. The Zephyrian Empire chose to solve their problems through mass murder, Gonzalez declared while the defeated aliens trembled before her. They believed their superior technology made them our natural rulers. They were wrong. Strength is not measured by the weapons you carry but by the will to use them without hesitation or mercy. The terms of surrender were harsh, but non-negotiable. Humanity claimed 90% of former Zephyrian territory, including their most productive worlds and strategic systems. The surviving aliens would be relocated to reservation planets under human supervision, where they could contemplate the consequences of their arrogance. Their crystalline cities would become museums while human colonists claimed their abandoned worlds. Ambassador Cruz found herself negotiating humanity's entry into the Galactic Council not as the junior species, seeking acceptance they had once been, but as the dominant military power that other civilizations now feared and respected. The diplomatic protocols that had once relegated humans to observer status were hastily rewritten to accommodate their new position as conquerors. Captain Morrison stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching construction begin on massive shipyards around every major star in the former Zephyrian territory. Human industrial capacity was expanding exponentially as they claimed the resources needed to build the largest fleet in galactic history. The exploration vessels of his past career seemed quaint compared to the war machines taking shape in the orbital yards. The consciousness transfer technology continued evolving as Dr. Foster's team perfected new applications for their revolutionary discovery. Humans could now share memories and experiences directly, while uploaded minds could operate multiple mechanical bodies simultaneously. The line between individual and collective consciousness began blurring as humanity developed a hive mind capability that terrified other species. Chief Engineer Wang commanded an entire squadron of vessels crewed by consciousness, transferred engineers who could repair battle damage instantly and operate in conditions that would kill biological crews. Her ships became the backbone of human expansion, as they could travel to any environment and establish industrial facilities with unprecedented speed. The mechanical soldiers led by Sergeant Carter evolved into an elite force that could conquer any world regardless of environmental conditions or defensive preparations. Their artificial bodies were constantly upgraded with new capabilities, while their human consciousnesses retained the tactical flexibility that had won the war. No alien species could match their combination of technological superiority and human determination. Other civilizations began approaching humanity with offers of alliance, tribute, and submission, as news of the Zephyrian defeat spread throughout the galaxy. The aquatic Delphinians formally joined the human sphere of influence, while the insectoid hive clusters offered military cooperation. Even the ancient machine intelligences of the Nexus Collective sought non-aggression pacts with the new galactic superpower. Medical Officer Turner now oversaw vast medical facilities where consciousness transfer technology was being applied to civilian purposes. Humans could survive any injury or disease by uploading their minds to mechanical bodies, while their original forms were repaired or replaced. Death from natural causes was becoming optional as humanity gained effective immortality. The Terran hegemony was officially established with Earth as the capital of an empire that spanned over 300 worlds. Human colonies spread across the galaxy at an unprecedented rate as consciousness-transferred workers could establish settlements in any environment. The species that had once huddled around 12 star systems now claimed dominion over vast sectors of space. President Gonzalez announced plans for the Great Expansion that would see human territory doubled within 5 years. The combination of consciousness transfer technology, quantum communication arrays, and unlimited industrial capacity made such rapid growth possible. Other species watched nervously as humanity demonstrated capabilities that bordered on science fiction. The final scene played out in the rebuilt chambers of the Galactic Council, where Ambassador Cruz took her seat as the representative of galactic civilization's newest apex predator. The other delegates included species that had once looked down on humanity as primitive newcomers, but now spoke in respectful whispers about human military capabilities. Admiral Thompson addressed the Council from his position as Supreme Commander of Human Forces, while holographic displays showed the current disposition of the Terran fleet. Over 10,000 warships patrolled human space, while construction continued on vessels that dwarfed anything previously seen in the galaxy. The message was clear to every delegate present. Humanity sought only peace and prosperity when we first joined this council, Thompson declared while his words were transmitted across the galaxy. The Zephyrians chose to answer our friendship with murder and conquest. They learned too late that when you threaten human survival, you awaken forces beyond your comprehension or control. The consciousness-transferred minds of every human who had died in the war witnessed their species' transformation from prey to predator. Dr. Kevin Palmer and his research team watched from their mechanical bodies as humanity claimed the galaxy they had died to protect. Their sacrifice had not been in vain, and their vengeance was complete. The galaxy had learned a fundamental truth about the species from the Outer Rim territories. Humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or numbers, but their willingness to sacrifice everything for survival, and their ability to transform tragedy into unstoppable fury. When pushed to the edge of extinction, they became something that even they had never imagined possible. The Zephyrians had taken one step too far when they chose mass murder over negotiation. They awakened humanity's fury and discovered that some sleeping giants should never be disturbed. The galaxy now belonged to a new apex predator, and the universe would never be the same.